A $300,000 car can look like an engineering masterpiece. Carbon fiber, hand-stitched leather, hundreds of horsepower. The materials inside that car are nowhere near worth $300,000. But here is the strange part. The materials inside that car are nowhere near worth $300,000. In fact, two vehicles can share similar engines, similar technology, and even similar manufacturing techniques. And yet one can sell for several times the price of the other. So where does the difference come from? Why do manufacturers deliberately produce fewer vehicles when selling more would seem to mean more money? Why can a $500,000 automobile lose hundreds of thousands of dollars almost immediately after leaving the showroom? And perhaps the biggest question of all, if luxury car companies know customers will pay less, why don't they simply build cheaper cars? Because the business of luxury automobiles was never really about selling transportation. It is about controlling perception, scarcity, status, desire, and ultimately, price. And once you understand the machine behind that price tag, the luxury car starts to look very different. A normal car has a relatively simple economic proposition. You pay for transportation. You want it to be reliable, practical, fuel, efficient, and inexpensive enough to own without constantly thinking about the cost. Luxury cars play a different game. A $40,000 car has to justify its price through what it does. A $300,000 car can justify its price through what it means. Of course, the manufacturer still has to build something real. There is metal, carbon fiber, leather, electronics, labor, engineering, factories, shipping, dealerships, warranties, marketing, taxes, and thousands of other expenses hidden behind the final number. But none of those costs automatically explain the price. The difference is that luxury manufacturers are selling two things at once. The first is the physical product, the engine, suspension, interior, technology, and performance. The second is something you cannot put on a factory invoice, the brand. A famous badge carries decades of racing victories, design history, craftsmanship, exclusivity, and social recognition. It can turn an ordinary component into something that feels special simply because of where it came from. And this is where luxury economics becomes fascinating. Customer isn't necessarily paying 10 times more because the car costs 10 times more to manufacture. They're paying because the manufacturer has created something people believe is worth 10 times more. Price, in other words, is not simply a reflection of physical cost. It is a reflection of perceived value. And once manufacturers understand that, they discover another powerful tool for increasing that perception: scarcity. In most industries, selling more is the goal. If a manufacturer can build 100,000 cars instead of 50,000, it can spread factory costs across more vehicles, negotiate better prices from suppliers, automate production, and lower the cost of building each individual car. Scale is an advantage. But luxury manufacturers face a strange problem. Sometimes, producing more cars can actually make the product less valuable. This is where controlled scarcity enters the equation. Instead of allowing anyone to buy an unlimited number of vehicles, manufacturers can restrict production, limit allocations, create special editions, maintain waiting lists, or offer certain models only to selected customers. The result is a powerful paradox. Company can increase demand by refusing to satisfy all of it. Imagine two cars sitting beside each other. One is produced in huge numbers and can be ordered immediately. The other is available to only a few hundred people. The second car suddenly carries something the first one cannot easily replicate: rarity. Scarcity creates urgency. It creates exclusivity. It gives owners something to signal socially. And once collectors believe an object may become difficult to obtain in the future, demand can move beyond transportation entirely. Car becomes a collectible. This is why some manufacturers are not simply producing automobiles. They are producing rarity. If everyone can have one, owning one means less. But there is another ingredient luxury companies need. Scarcity can make something difficult to obtain. It cannot, by itself, make people care. Someone still has to convince buyers that the rare object is worth wanting. And that is where the automobile business starts to resemble something very different from traditional manufacturing: luxury fashion. You can recognize certain automotive names without seeing the car. A small emblem on a hood can immediately communicate wealth, performance, heritage, or exclusivity. And that recognition was not created by a logo designer in a single afternoon. It was built over decades, racing victories, engineering breakthroughs, iconic models, famous owners, motorsport legends, distinctive designs. Even the sound of an engine can become part of a brand's identity. This is the difference between building a good car and building a desirable automobile brand. A technically excellent vehicle can deliver tremendous performance and still struggle to command a premium if nobody cares who made it. A powerful brand changes that equation. Car becomes a signal. It can communicate success without the owner saying a word. It can suggest wealth, taste, achievement, or membership in a very exclusive group. And that signal has economic value. Think about everything surrounding the physical vehicle: the shape of the badge, the stitching inside the cabin, the materials you touch, the sound when the engine starts, the dealership experience, the presentation of the keys, and even the story attached to the model. None of these things necessarily make the car move faster, but together, they make the customer feel that the car is worth more. This is intangible value, and luxury manufacturers protect it aggressively because a brand can take decades to build and only a few years to damage. Sell too many cars, discount them too heavily, or make the brand too accessible, and that invisible premium can begin to disappear. So now we have to ask a more uncomfortable question. Behind all that heritage, leather, carbon fiber, engineering, and storytelling, what does the machine actually cost to build? To find out, we have to follow the car backwards. From the showroom to the factory floor. The first thing to understand about a $200,000 car is that its selling price and its manufacturing cost are two completely different numbers. Before the car reaches a showroom, money has already been spent on raw materials, engines, electronics, aluminum, steel, carbon fiber, leather, precision components, factory labor, engineering, quality control, testing, logistics, and countless other costs. And luxury vehicles can make those costs unusually complicated. A mass-market manufacturer might build hundreds of thousands of vehicles using the same platform and components. That enormous scale spreads fixed expenses across millions of units. The factory, tooling, software development, engineering teams, and testing programs become cheaper on a per-car basis. A low-volume luxury model cannot always do that. Imagine spending hundreds of millions developing a specialized vehicle, then producing only a few thousand examples. The engineering bill still exists. The factory still needs to operate. Engineers still need salaries. Testing still has to happen. And then the customer asks for something different. Hand-finished surfaces. Special leather. Carbon fiber components. Bespoke colors. Low-volume parts. Custom specifications. Those features can increase variable costs, while the limited production volume makes it harder to distribute fixed costs. This creates an important distinction between fixed and variable costs. Some expenses barely change whether you build one car or 10,000. Others rise with every vehicle produced. So yes, a luxury manufacturer can earn an enormous margin on a particular model. But that does not mean the entire business is simply collecting an effortless markup. There may be years of engineering and enormous operating costs hidden behind a relatively small production run, which means manufacturing explains part of the price. Economics becomes psychology, because numbers alone cannot create the desire customers feel.